Welcome to Service Titans, the podcast where we dive deep into the inspiring journeys of Black men within the AmeriCorps community. From serving in classrooms to rebuilding neighborhoods, these are the stories of passion, purpose, and resilience. Join us as we amplify the voices of members of the AmeriCorps community and share their triumphs, challenges, and the impact they've made in their communities. Whether you're a seasoned AmeriCorps veteran or someone considering service, this is the space to explore, reflect, and be inspired. Get ready to be uplifted, empowered, and connected. This is Service Titans.
What up, though? This is Service Titans, the show where we discuss the stories, experiences, insights of remarkable individuals who are making a difference in their communities and beyond. I'm your host, Anton Taylor, and on today's episode, our guest is Steve Stevenson. I'm really excited to have Steve on today's episode. Steve brings over 15 years of transformative leadership. Currently serves as the Senior Vice President of Field Services at Kid Again. But our connection traces back to his tenure at City Year, where Steve played a pivotal role in advancing AmeriCorps programs, leading site operations. But in my opinion, the biggest thing Steve did consistently was model how to be an authentic leader. His ability to develop inclusive environments and culture and mentor young leaders truly inspired me in my professional journey. So on this episode, we'll explore Steve's career journey, his insights to service-driven leadership, and the lessons learned from his time with the AmeriCorps. Steve, thank you so much for taking time to join the podcast.
Hey, it's an absolute pleasure, man. I'm so proud of everything you're doing and what you're accomplishing. This is like coming home.
Means so much just to hear that from you, Steve. And I'll touch on that a little bit in our conversation. But I want to start with just like jumping into just your story, Steve, particularly your professional journey. Would you mind just elaborating a little bit more about your journey and what led you to the roles that you've held in the nonprofit sector and leading other young men and young women?
Sure. So it goes back probably about 35 years or so. I grew up in Pittsburgh, and I grew up in a community that was really, really struggling, and I didn't have a lot of positive Black role models or positive leaders. So through high school and college, I decided and determined that, I was going to be to someone else that I didn't have for myself. I got a basketball scholarship, played 4 years at Point Park College. And then once I transitioned out of college into the real world, I started an after-school program in the neighborhood that I grew up in. And I was able to raise the money, get a small nonprofit to kind of support me. And while I was doing that, this new thing was happening in Boston, and it was called an organization called City Year. This is like 1993. Wow. City Year actually was trying to come to Pittsburgh because they wanted to eventually branch out outside of Boston. So they sent people out in the community, and I guess my name kept coming up as someone that was positive in the community. And one day out of the blue, I got a call from City Year, and they asked me to come to Boston to be a manager for the organization, their nonprofit organization. I actually asked them, could I actually be in the program as a member, which they thought was interesting, but I wanted to really understand what I was getting into. And I had like 6 months before I was too old to be in the program. So they allowed me to come. So I came to Boston to make $79 a week on a stipend and live with like 6 other guys in a 3-bedroom apartment. And it was probably the best thing I ever did in my life. When you talk about walking out on faith, that's kind of what it was. And it truly changed my whole trajectory of life. And the crazy thing of it is, and how AmeriCorps ties into this, at the time, there was no AmeriCorps. So being in that corps in Boston, President Clinton came to visit us, and he gave this big speech, and he said if he ever became president, he would create something similar to City Year. And when he became president, he did. And he utilized, and I don't know a lot of people know this, but he utilized City Year, Public Allies, and Youth Build as sort of the foundation, the backdrop of creating AmeriCorps in the National Service Act. And City Year was grandfathered into that by not having to change our fundamental philosophy to meet in, because we were part of what he kind of created. 1993, AmeriCorps started, and that was 1994 was when we were able to go to other chapters. So I got sent to Columbus, Ohio, and I helped start City Year in AmeriCorps in Columbus, Ohio. Had an amazing experience, worked with some amazing folks, and I did that for a couple of years. Then he asked me to go to City Year Cleveland to help start City Year Cleveland. Again, had amazing experience. And then they asked me to go to City Year Detroit. Again, had an amazing experience. That was probably my most challenging because just the city itself was ready for a program like City Year and AmeriCorps. So it took a lot of work. The sort of racial divide was very, very strong. Our first year of the Corps, I believe we had maybe 5 white people in the Corps. The Corps was basically all Black. And by our third year, we were able to diversify the Corps a little bit, but it was definitely a challenge. Parents were afraid to allow their kids to come into Detroit to do service in the inner city of Detroit. So we were proud to kind of break down those misconceptions about what's going on in Detroit. And then from there, they asked me to go to Philadelphia. So I went to City of Philadelphia, had a great, amazing experience there. And then they asked me to go to New Orleans. Well, actually, City of Louisiana. City of Louisiana got established right after a year or two after Katrina. And when they started it, they didn't start it the right way. So there was a lot of challenges. So they asked me to just go and give my thoughts on, what would I do differently, or how would I rebuild, rebrand the site. So I was supposed to go down there for 3 months. It ended up being 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had to the first thing I did was separate the New Orleans and Baton Rouge, because before that was the City of Louisiana, but that didn't make sense because you had 2 separate funding bases, 2 separate entities, servers. So I created City of New Orleans and City of Baton Rouge, and very, very challenging, but was able to hire new staff, recruit new Corps members, and kind of get them back on the road. So after that, I came back to Columbus, and I spent some time doing some consulting with some local nonprofits here in the Columbus area, Godman Guild. I did some consulting with City Year in Columbus for a little bit. And then I was asked to be the executive director of Ward YMCA. And the interesting about Ward YMCA, it's one of the oldest African-American Ys in the country. Dr. King's YMCA in Atlanta was the oldest, but when that closed, the Ward family YMCA became the oldest. And when I took over that branch, it historically underachieved, had like a $279,000 negative in the red. In the chapter, the actual branch was never profitable. So within 2.5 years, not only did I make the branch profitable, I raised an additional $250,000 for individuals who could not afford membership. So I basically made it to whereas no one walked away. I turned it into a community hub. We had health clinics, health fairs. People start coming to there because they knew if they needed something in the community, they could come to the Y. So I was very proud of the work I did there. And then I was asked to create a mentorship program for Columbus City Schools. And Columbus City Schools, if you don't know, is the largest school system in Ohio. And basically what we wanted to do is to help off-track seniors graduate, because at that time, Columbus City School District had about a low 60% graduation rate. So I basically took the kids who had no chance of graduating, and within a year was able to get them to graduate. So my first year in the program, I graduated 74% of those kids who weren't supposed to graduate. And by my 4th year, I graduated 97% of those kids that weren't supposed to graduate. And all I did was put a caring adult in their life, a caring adult that met with them every week, a caring adult who advocated for them, a caring adult who basically, no matter what they say or did, stuck with them and built that relationship. So their attendance got better, their core educational numbers got better, and their behaviors got better. No more suspensions, no more missing school. So I was very proud of that program. And then COVID hit, had to take a kind of a step back, and COVID hit. And then I was asked to be a directing manager for housing for the YWCA, which was a little different for me. I oversaw about 500 person family homeless shelter. And then I also oversaw about 98 women in individual housing that had severe disabilities. So I had about a staff of about 50 folks, ranging from clinical directors all the way to security. And I did that for about a year, helped them get it kind of back on track. And then a Kid Again came calling, and that's where I'm at now. And a Kid Again was truly a blessing. A Kid Again is an organization that works with kids with life-threatening conditions. We basically, our whole thing is that we want to give them the opportunity to just be kids and to just enjoy their life in between the hospital stays, the bad days. And also, we also do it for the whole entire family. So they got 5 siblings. All siblings get the same benefits as the kid in the program. So we'll take, 2,000 kids to amusement park, 6,000 kids to a fair. It's kind of like having a extra village that helps you, because if you're a kid and you can imagine seeing, 7,000 kids at an amusement park, 4,000 wheelchairs, 1,500 oxygen tanks, for that day, those kids feel normal. They feel like they belong. They feel like they see other people, and then parents get to connect and kind of build that trust. And what I do is that I'm the senior VP. I oversee all the chapters. So I help the chapters raise the money to sustain these different programs all across the country, help them develop their advisory boards. And then I also lead DEI for our national organization as well. So that's kind of me over the last 30 some years.
Thanks for sharing that, Steve. And I know our paths crossed during the time in city of Louisiana that you split to New Orleans and Baton Rouge, but it also is just a hearing that is a testament to, one, your commitment to service and making things better than, how we find them. But also what strikes me is just your willingness to relocate and take on new challenges and et cetera. Steve, can you speak to that a little bit? Like I read something recently that talked about the ability to advance in life. You have to be willing to adjust and relocate and take new initiatives. Like, was that ever a question for you, or you always just willing to jump in? Like that just stands out to you?
I always love the challenge. It's just something in me that I want to go to somewhere I've never been before, and before I leave, want to make that home. And in the way I'll kind of put it, all those different places I went to, if you ask individuals from those places, they thought I grew up there. So, when I went to Columbus, people literally think I grew up in Columbus. They always ask what high school I go to. When I went to Cleveland, people thought I grew up there. When I went to Philly, people thought I was, because I really dig myself into, not only the organization I work with, but the community itself. I mentor hundreds of young people still to this day, all over the country from all those different places. I truly, love going somewhere and accepting that challenge and to make it better, and then I always feel good because people always say, well, Steve, you stay a few years and then you leave, but I always feel good leaving because I know I made it better and I'm leaving something in a better situation. So all those situations that I left, it was better financially, it was better spiritually, and it was better culture. So I feel good moving on to do that somewhere else.
No, I can personally attest to that, Steve, again. And I always kind of joke and say you were the fixer. Like when Steve comes in, stuff is getting ready to get fixed. But you mentioned a little bit, Steve, this commitment to mentoring young people. And although I may not be still considered a young person, but I consider myself a part of that tribe and community of people that you've mentored over the years. And I've never shared this with you, Steve, and I'm glad I have this opportunity here on the podcast. Like during our time in Louisiana, as a young man trying to find my way, you did something that really had a huge impact on me. And I don't know if you know you did or if you didn't, this is my chance to share it with you. When I was there and you were leading as the executive director and leading the site, I was in Baton Rouge without my family as a young professional from Detroit, Michigan, trying to kind of find my way. And a part of that, I didn't have the both financial structure or the things that I needed to kind of make this move to Baton Rouge. And a small thing during that time is getting back and forth to work. And I don't know if you remember, we had vans during that time, getting back and forth to our sites and et cetera. And during that year, I often would try to stay after school program. I would take my members take them back to our site or take them home, whatever it may be. But I also knew I didn't have the transportation to get myself to and from where I needed to get to. And oftentimes I would try to see if I could use the van in a way that would allow me to be able to get back and forth. Again, my family was in Detroit. And there was one particular day, Steve, where some of the core members who were in both staff were feeling a little bit some type of way about it. And you kind of came around and you said, hey, that's Anton's van. Like, Steve, you saying that, I don't know if you know how much of a burden that lifted off of me and trying to kind of find my way and figure out how can I make this work, continue to be a leader in this space, but also just for my own psychological safety to be able to show up as my best self. So when you kind of came over that day and everyone was trying to talk about who has this van, who has that van, and I don't know if you did it purposely or not, but you kind of said, hey, that's Anton's van. and people just kind of looked a little bit away. And from that point forth, I just said, oh, man, I really appreciate it. And I rock with Steve. And again, I don't know if that was purposely or not, but I wanted to share that story. But then I'll get to my question here, Steve. Are there any tools or things that you do in particular to like support young people, like when they're trying to figure it out, and particularly young Black men? Like, I would love to just like hear what's your approach to that. And like my long story added on to that as well.
Thank you. And yeah, I did purposely do that. As you remember back then, there was always a little bit of chaos. And my goal was to silence a lot of the chaos. And at the end of the day, I treat everyone with respect. And I earned the right to be able to just say, hey, this is Anton's van, and not really have to deal with all the stuff that goes back and forth with that. So that was one of the times where I threw one of my chips in. But yeah, I do remember that. And then to answer your question, I come from a standpoint of I fundamentally owe. And what I mean by that is I grew up and I've done things in my life at a younger age that weren't really great because I didn't have any type of structure. I didn't have a father figure. I didn't have any of that. You know, I had older siblings, but they weren't really trying to support me. They were out doing their own things. So I made a lot of mistakes. And from those mistakes, I kind of figured it out my own way. So fundamentally, I feel like I owe because of those mistakes allowed me to be in the places that I am now. I come from that, like I naturally just give back because that's what I should do. And as far as working with young men of color, especially African-American men, that's who I am. That's who I know. You know, that's my tribe. You know, I believe in supporting and helping human beings, you know, at the end of the day. But within that, I'm going to show up and try to support my tribe because I know what they're going through. And I know that I could probably help prevent some steps and help escalate them to further steps in their careers. And I've always done that. And the way I approach it is that I'm just authentically real. Like I listen, like my superpower is that I listen. Like I hear what you say, I comprehend what you say, and then I respond. The greatest curse that I think we have as adults is that we don't listen to each other. We literally, someone's talking, and in the back of your mind, you're saying, what I got to say is way more important and way more valuable than whatever this person's telling me right now. So you automatically just cut that person off because you want to get to what you got to say. I've been able to turn that off. So I've been able to actually listen. And if you listen, a couple things happen. One thing happens is a lot of times young people will figure out their own problems when they talk through it because they never get a chance to talk through it because someone's already telling them what to do. So in the middle of the process of them kind of going through their different steps of their issues, their concerns, and trying to figure out what they should do, you always have someone telling you, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. What I do is just listen. I let them get it out. And a lot of times they kind of talk themselves into, you know, some good solutions, and then I'll just add from there. And then the other part of that, and the other part of listening is I get to hone in on what they're not saying. I get to hear what they're not saying. And then I can come back to that. And literally, sometimes it freaks them out. You know, I literally will repeat what they said word for word. And then I'll say, and the one thing I didn't hear is this, and this. Why is that? And then they're like, oh, wow. You know, and then and the other thing, you know, and I think the most important thing is I'm consistent. You know, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. If I say I'm going to be somewhere, I'm going to be somewhere. You know, one of the things when I started my mentorship program with Columbus City Schools, when I used to do the training to my mentors, I did everything in my power to make them quit during training. Like if you ask some of my mentors, they were like, man, Steve was ruthless.
Pressure.
I wanted you to quit during training because I can't afford to put you in front of this kid who mother's on drugs, dad is locked up, brother is doing all types of stuff, and this kid is totally lost, doesn't come to school because he's frustrated, you know, and then I put him in front of you to be his mentor, and he cusses you out the first 2 days of mentoring session, and then you walk away. Can't afford that. I just can't afford that. So I need to know, are you going to be consistent? And a really, really quick story. I had a young lady that I was mentoring, and this is amazing. And I was running the program for a whole entire school district. So I couldn't really actually mentor individuals because I was running the program. But I set up this thing at one of the high schools. And one of the things I do with my mentoring, when I pair my mentors to the mentee, I have the actual mentees interview the mentors. It's like speed dating. I tell my mentors to have thick skin, and they ask them the questions, and then they tell me who they feel comfortable with. But we were doing this process, and when lady comes in and she's cussing the principal out, she's like, I don't want to be here, F this, F that. And like all the mentors are looking at me like, hey, I'm not meant I can't handle
About
her.
my answer.
So I said, okay, I'll take her on. Our first 4 sessions, she didn't say a word. So we sat there for an hour staring at each other. And at the end of the 4th session, she said, this is stupid. I don't like you. You don't like me. Why you keep coming back? Are you going to come next week? I said, yeah, I'll be here next week. But she was just like, why? I said, because I made a commitment to you and I'm going to do it. So after that, she started to kind of break down. And then, the reality is when you start listening, you understand, she was prostituted at a young age. So that's why she hate men. Her family, people in her family abused her. She was her mother prostituted her out. This young lady went through some horrific things. So once you start understanding that, you're able to start to kind of break down kind of how to approach to support her. And basically all she needed and all she wanted was just some consistency and someone to say, if I do this, this is going to happen. So long story short, she's 26 right now, still stay in contact. She used to spend holidays with me and my family. She was cool with my daughter, ended up graduating high school, ended up going to college, and all because I listened. I listened and I stayed consistent and I did what I said I was going to do. I'm not no superhero. I ain't got no special powers or anything. I just show up and I listen and I stay consistent. And I do that mentoring at-risk youth all the way to my executive directors that, my executives that I supervise now. We have some of the similar conversations, believe it or not, because it's really about, understanding where they fit, what they're doing, what they're not doing, how can they be better, and then dealing with all of their personal stuff that's either hurting them to getting their job done or on top of them doing a great job, so I try to help them balance all that.
That's one, which I always think is like super cool about you, Steve, is the idea of staying connected and sort of seeing people through their journey, which I think is really incredible and powerful for young people. And I add myself to that, but I also think that when you talked about listening and consistency, it's not rocket science. We all have the opportunity to do that. It's just a commitment to that. And particularly as a young person, just knowing somebody showing up for you every day can mean the world. So no, I definitely understand that and appreciate you for like sharing those jewels here. Like, hopefully that's something that we all like take into not only our professional and our personal lives. It's, just listen and be consistent. It can go a long way. But I'm gonna pivot a little bit, Steve, to talk about just like your leadership principles and from your experience and your story. I know some of the fundamentals you share here around just being present and listening and giving people the space to open up as they feel appropriate. But also wonder, Steve, like, are there additional principles that are really been important for you as a leader, and particularly as a Black man in what is often a predominantly white space? I know for me, watching you model the authenticity you can bring to the space is something I carry with me every day as a leader. I just would love to hear, like, Steve, are there some things or principles that you just stand on? And also like that dynamic of being a Black man in most cases, a predominantly white space.
The biggest thing I stand on is my composure. I'm a 6'3", 200, and well, I was 400 pounds. I lost a lot of weight. So I actually lost half my, so I'm about 245, 250 now. So I've always been a big guy. I've always been, if I walk down the street, sometimes people will cross the street because they see me coming. That comes with the stereotype of being a big Black guy. So I always, stand on my composure. I never let people get me out of my composure because I think that's important because, I want you to get beyond my physical appearance to actually hear what I got to say, because what I got to say is important. If you're so tuned into what I look like and all that, and then I act a certain way that make you even more worried about that, then, that's not helping me get whatever point across that I need to get across. And within doing that, though, I still stay true to who I am. I never compromise who I am as a Black man and understand the gift and the curse that I have being in a leadership role as a Black man. I struggle on a daily basis, wondering if there's more I can do. Am I forgetting to do something? Is this, and I think that's just for any Black leader, that's always something in your mind because you feel like you see so many people, especially so many young Black men being left behind, sometimes it gets overwhelming, and I get overwhelmed too, because I truly care about making sure that they get to where they need to get. So yeah, I stand on my composure. I stand on making sure that I'm showing up as my authentic self. I believe in really taking time to be by myself, and I'm okay with that. Like, some people don't like being alone or
Yeah.
can't be by themselves. I enjoy being by myself because I'm always doing something for someone else. So when I get the opportunity to just be by myself and be with my thoughts and kind of process things, that's really helpful for me. So I think those are the biggest three skills that I use to be able to sort of maintain, who I am and what I do. Again, nothing's rocket science. It's just how you do it and when you do it that matters.
And Steve, just hearing you say that all around this, I also kind of adopt that idea of like being comfortable being by yourself. And sometimes you got to disconnect. So I think like it's really dope that you mentioned that, because in today's world, we all feel like we're forced to be social, whether it's in person or social media, whatever it may be. But sometimes you just kind of take a step back and like, be with yourself and be comfortable with that. So thanks for sharing that, Jewel. So Steve, I want to kind of pivot into a component of the podcast where we really try to be intentional about shining a light on people who had an impact in our lives, whether that's small or big. And I know in my neighborhood, it's something for somebody to say, I see you, like I see you shining. So it's kind of under that thought process. So Steve, I want to ask you, is there a service titan in your life that has had a lasting impact on you, whether that's small or big? Would love for you to shine that light on them and let them know that you see them. So want to give you the floor to do that, Steve. If there is someone that you want to recognize in that way.
Yeah, so this is maybe a little unconventional or maybe a little different, but it's my daughter, Alice Jamie Stevenson. My daughter has taught me more and showed me such a level of consistency, hard work, and just true grit when it comes to supporting and helping others. So in elementary school, my daughter wanted to help Haiti because at that time there was a crisis in Haiti. And my daughter goes to an all-white school. Our school district is predominantly all white. So she taught to her teacher, this is fifth grade. She taught to her teachers, she got them to give a day where they would create these pictures and then be able to sell the pictures. And then all the proceeds from that went to Haiti. So that's fifth grade.
That's fifth grade.
Fifth grade. My daughter has been published. She wrote some articles and she was published at the age of 16. My daughter started her own nonprofit scholarship program to whereas she gives back between $5,000 to $10,000 to students of color, because there's not a lot in our school district, so that they can use that money to go to college. And she actually started, it's called Westerville One. She actually started this program, created it, raised the money to get the scholarships, and then every year she goes back to our high school and gives those scholarships out. My daughter in high school went to Ghana her junior year, going into her senior year. She raised a significant amount of money, went over to Ghana and went to a orphanage. And over there, the kids actually have to pay to go to school. So she raised enough money to be able to put 26 kids through school for a year. So she literally went over there for a month, worked at the school, signed over the money for the kids. So my daughter is my hero. Now, obviously, if you hear her, she'll tell you, "Oh, I got her from watching my dad, just that, whatever." But I can't even take credit for that, because what she has done in her short 23 years, I haven't done in my 54 years. And I'm just so excited to see what is next for her, where she goes. Now, granted, she has an amazing mother. Her mother is phenomenal. I'm a pretty good dad, and one other thing that she did that, so almost brings me to tears sometimes. One Christmas, she was like, I don't want to really do the Christmas thing or whatever. I want to make you something personal. So my daughter gave me a jar with 356 reasons why she loved me.
Oh man.
And my job was every day I woke up, I took one out of the jar for a whole
That's
year.
awesome.
Yeah.
Got to hold
So
your composure on that one, Steve. Yeah, that would have got me too.
Yeah. So that's Ollie Jamie Stevenson. That's my Titan right there.
Oh man, thank you for sharing that, and also, in some ways, letting me know I need to step my game up. So I hear you, for sure. But Steve, thanks so much for like sharing that, and again, like I truly appreciate you for taking the time to join the podcast. And I think it's evident there's so many great things going on and other ways you could be using your time. So I truly appreciate that. Before we conclude, Steve, I want to know, is there a way that, audience can get in touch with you, or what would be the best way if people wanted to just stay connected and continue to be a part of, your journey and your experiences?
They can always reach me at sstevenson@kidagain, sstevenson2000@gmail.com. If you just put Steve Stevenson in LinkedIn, I'll come up, and I'm Facebook. And then if you look on Kid Again, Kid Again's website, you can always reach me through there as well. And I just want to take a second to thank you. I appreciate what you're doing. It just shows a lot about sort of your character and understanding the importance of, motivating, especially Black men, and just giving them opportunities to hear stories and hear from other people who may be going through something similar that they're going through. Sometimes people don't always talk about, the go-between that gets the message to the other people. I always shine light on the person who actually creates the opportunity for that to happen. So I want to shine a light on you, my brother. I appreciate it.
No, thanks so much, Stephen. I mean, you don't know how much that means, like coming from you. You're always a good people with me. And I got countless other stories I could share about our time in Louisiana and how it helped me get through that year. But I'm digressing, kind of close things out by saying, Steve, thank you so much for joining the podcast and both sharing your insights and experiences. Listeners, be sure to connect with Steve on social media. And with that, until next time, keep the conversation flowing, keep service front and center, and continue shining bright in your communities. This is Service Titans. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for joining us as we explored the inspiring journeys of Black men in AmeriCorps. Keep the conversation going by connecting with us on social media. Until next time, stay committed, stay courageous, and keep striving to make a difference. This is Service Titans, where every story told is a testament to the power of service. Thank you for listening.